Hello and welcome to my review and analysis of Life is Strange Remastered. Before we get started, I'd like to explain how this video will be organized. This review will be split into 6 different parts: gameplay, story, characters, extra things like graphics and music, then comparing this playthrough to my playthrough, and then finally my overall thoughts and opinions on the game. I've replayed this game several times, so these are not my first feelings and opinions, but with this playthrough I took a much more analytical stance, so my thoughts towards this game are more fleshed out. Parts of this video will be referencing some of the things from my Life is Strange Before the Storm review, so if you haven't watched that or played the game for yourself, I highly recommend it. Speaking of playing the game for yourself, if you haven't watched Life is Strange or played it, I highly recommend you do so, as this video will have major spoilers and is a phenomenal game. Now without further ado, let's get into the video. Gameplay is the thing I have the least to talk about, as it is the simplest part of the game, for the most part. The core gameplay loop is very simple. You have to walk around, look at and interact with stuff, and talk to people. What you do and say in this game impacts certain factors. If you're nice to someone, they could be nice back, or if you steal something, you could get punished. Nothing out of the ordinary for games like this. This part of the gameplay is simple yet effective. Everything you do feels like it has an impact on the characters and the world around you. Another thing this game does is some puzzle and problem solving. Nothing crazy, mainly finding codes, figuring out what connects to what, and doing certain sequences. What this game does differently is that you have the ability to rewind time. This is used in a ton of different ways. If you mess up while talking to someone or learn something new, you can go back and change your response. If you break something, you can go back and make sure it doesn't break, and a lot more uses both gameplay and story-wise. The ability to rewind time is what really sets this game apart, because as far as I'm aware, there aren't any other games like this that allow you to go back and change what you do. Of course, there are limitations. Once you leave an area to go to the next, you can't go back, so you still have set choices and consequences. Overall, the gameplay is simple and effective, but very unique, and I love it. The story of Life is Strange is a mystery adventure that is split into 5 episodes, each one representing a day. We start with episode 1, Chrysalis, where we are introduced to our character, Max Caulfield, and we are just as confused as her. She is in a forest while a storm is happening, and the safest place to be is in a lighthouse in the distance. She makes her way to it, and she sees off the coast a massive tornado heading towards the town. Part of the lighthouse collapses and almost crushes Max. She wakes up in her photography class, a little shaken from the dream. In an attempt to ground herself, she takes a selfie. This catches the attention of her teacher, Mr. Jefferson, and the rest of the class. Shortly after this, the class is finished, and Max is asked if she has a photo to submit for the Everyday Heroes contest, which she does, but she doesn't turn in. She proceeds to head to the restroom to wash off her face. While on her way there, she sees lots of missing posters for a girl named Rachel Amber. When she gets to the bathroom, there's a butterfly that flies in, and she sees it as a great photo opportunity. After taking the photo, a guy walks in, talking to himself, and shortly after he is followed by a girl with blue hair who is demanding money from him. He flips out and pulls out a gun and ends up shooting the girl. Max, in a panic, tries to react, but ends up in the classroom when she first woke up. She sees the same events happen and realizes that she has the ability to rewind time. She realizes that she can use her power to save the girl in the bathroom. When she gets to the bathroom, she does everything she did before and waits for them to enter. She stops the confrontation by hitting the fire alarm, which forces everyone to leave. Immediately after this, you have the chance to tell the principal what happened in the bathroom, which in my playthrough I did. After this, Max heads back to her dorm to decompress. She gets a message from her friend Warren asking if she can give him back his movie drive. On her way to the parking lot, she saw Kate Marsh being harassed by the head of security, David Madsen, and in my playthrough, I intervened. Once Max gets to the parking lot, she talks to Warren, and while they're talking, Nathan Prescott, the guy from the bathroom, gets aggressive with them, and it leads to a fight, and Max's camera breaks. Max is saved by the blue-haired girl, who turns out to be Max's childhood best friend, Chloe Price. They head back to Chloe's house, where they talk and learn that Chloe is the one who is putting up the posters for Rachel Amber, as they are best friends. Max tries to fix her camera, but can't, and then Chloe ends up giving up her father's camera to Max. Speaking of fathers, Chloe's stepdad then comes home, who turns out to be the head of security who is harassing Kate. He then catches Chloe smoking in the house and punishes her with a slap. Max and Chloe then head out of the house and go to the lighthouse when Max has another vision of the tornado and learns that it will take place that firework day. She wakes up and tells Chloe about her power, and then it starts to snow in the middle of October, and that is the end of episode 1. Overall, episode 1 is a phenomenal start to the game. It sets up so much for the rest of the game, the mysteries of Rachel Amber, Max's power, and the weather. It also introduces us to a lot of the big players and creates a good sense of how the rest of the game will work and feel. Episode 2, Out of Time, starts with Max in her dorm, waking up after a long night of trying to figure out her power. She heads to the showers to clean off, where she talks to Kate. Kate asks if she can have a book she needs for class back. After that, Max witnesses Kate being bullied by Victoria and Taylor, who then put up the link to a video of Kate kissing a bunch of people at a party. After her shower, Max goes to Kate's room to give her the book, and they talk about what happened to Kate. According to her, she went to a Vortex Club party and was possibly drugged and taken somewhere by Nathan. In my playthrough, I told Kate to go to the police. After talking to Kate, Max meets Chloe at the Two Wells Diner, where Chloe's mom works, so they can discuss her power. Max tells Chloe what is in her pockets and tells her what happens in the span of 30 seconds. This is enough to convince Chloe, and they head to the junkyard so they can further test Max's power. At the junkyard, Chloe shoots some stuff using Max's power to help her aim. The noise from the gun draws out Frank, a local drug dealer who Chloe owes money to. In my playthrough, they didn't attempt to shoot Frank, and he took the gun for Max and Chloe. After this, the two girls walk on a train track where Chloe ends up getting stuck as the train approaches. Max uses her power to save Chloe, and they head back to Blackwell. When walking to class, she sees Mr. Jefferson talking to Kate, and Kate ends up walking away upset. Then, while in class, she sees David stalking Kate and taking photos of her. Shortly after, a boy runs in, yelling about how something is going down at the dorms, and everyone heads that way. When Max gets to the dorm, she sees Kate at the top of the roof, who proceeds to jump. She uses her powers over and over to stop her, and ends up freezing time. She's able to get to the roof and starts talking to Kate, but feels that her powers have been overused and she can't use them. In this segment, I was able to save Kate by doing a lot of stuff earlier in the game, erasing messages, being kind to her, answering her call, and paying attention in her room. After Kate's incident, David, Max, Nathan, and Jefferson all meet in the principal's office to discuss what happened. Max is given the choice to choose one of the three to blame for what happened. I ended up choosing Nathan. Afterward, Max talks with Warren about what happened, and they see an eclipse. And that is the end of episode 2. The title of episode 2, Out of Time, fits so well. When trying to save Chloe, you feel like you are constantly out of time, even though you technically have all the time in the world. But that is not the case with Kate. With Kate, you are out of time. There are no more preparations you can make and no way to go back. Everything you do in this moment matters, and it makes this one of the best moments in the game. This is the only time that the game takes away the ability to rewind like this, and the pressure skyrockets when you realize this is life or death for Kate. And the sense of relief you get from saving her, or the dread from not, is massive. And that is why this sequence and this game have a spot in my heart. The rest of the episode is good. It furthers Max and Chloe's relationship and expands on what her powers are capable, but it doesn't immediately add too much to the story. The questions to Rachel, the power, and the storm aren't any closer to being solved. In fact, a new question is now being asked. What happened to Kate? Episode 3, Chaos Theory, starts with Max up late the night of Kate's incident, trying to figure out what happened to Rachel and Kate. She gets a message from Chloe to meet her in front of the school, and she does. While there, they witness Victoria talking to Mr. Jefferson about the Everyday Hero competition, where she threatens to blackmail him. After those two leave, Max and Chloe head into the building using keys Chloe stole from David. Unfortunately, the keys to the principal office aren't there, so Max asks Warren how to make a bomb to get into the office. After getting in and rewinding so they don't sound an alarm, they go through the files of different students and take a copy of Nathan's hidden reports where he has a drawing with the phrase, "Rachel in the dark room." Afterward, they head to the pool for a quick swim and barely escape getting caught and head back to Chloe's house for the night. After getting ready the next morning, they go to the two wills and Max uses her power to get Frank's keys so she can get his account book with all his dealings. While snooping through his RV and the book, they discover that Rachel and Frank were a thing. This upsets Chloe and she leaves in a haste. On the car ride home to drop Max at Blackwell, Chloe talks about how everyone in her life lets her down. Her dad dying, Max leaving, and Rachel betraying her. When Max gets back to her dorm, she looks at a picture of her and Chloe as kids and can hear what is being said through the photo. After focusing on the photo, she traveled back to that day. The day she traveled to was the day William, Chloe's dad, died in an accident, and the picture was taken right before he left. In an attempt to save Chloe's dad, she hides his keys from him so he will have to take the bus, and her plan works. William doesn't die in a crash. Max wakes up in a new reality, and her first action is to go see the impact that it has had on Chloe's life. She takes a bus, whose driver ends up being David, and on her way there, she sees a bunch of beached whales. When arriving at the Price residence, she is greeted by William, who calls for Chloe to come meet Max. When Chloe comes out, we see she is fully paralyzed and in a wheelchair. And that is the end of Episode 3. Overall, Episode 3 does a lot of setup for solving some of the mysteries. They have acquired Frank's account book and Nathan's reports. On top of this, Episode 3 also ends with a heartbreaking twist and cliffhanger. Episode 4, Dark Room, picks up where Episode 3 left off. Max and this new Chloe make their way down to the beach and talk to make up for their lost time. Afterward, they head back to Chloe's house for the night. As it turns out, Chloe was in a car crash that ended with her being paralyzed, and now she is stuck while the expenses keep piling up. They fall asleep watching a movie, and the next morning Chloe asks Max to grab her some morphine from upstairs. When Max returns, Chloe asks her to increase the dosage so she can pass away peacefully. In my playthrough, I chose not to, as I believe that it is not my decision to make, and to take away Joyce's and William's daughter from them without their consent, and without them to give Chloe a proper goodbye, is not right. Max then uses the same photo she did before to go back to the day William died and let what naturally happened happen. The timeline readjusts itself, and Max wakes back up in the original Chloe's room. They are currently working on a board of all the information they have gathered, and the next step is to get whatever information David has collected, so Max goes down and grabs his files. Next, they want to go to Nathan's dorm to find any more evidence against him, but first Max makes a stop at the hospital to visit Kate. After their visit, they head to Nathan's dorm, where Max breaks in and finds Nathan's burner phone. On their way out, they get caught by Nathan, and luckily Warren is there to save the day again, and he beats up Nathan. After that encounter, the last thing they need for clues is to find Frank and get his name log. They are able to convince him by telling him that this might help them find Rachel. After he gives them the names, they head back to Chloe's house and start to sort through all the clues. Using Nathan's phone and Frank's book, they're able to find the time and date that the drugs were exchanged. Then, using David's surveillance, they find the truck and location that matches the date and time after the drugs were bought. The location ends up being a barn that the Prescotts owned. Max and Chloe make their way there and start searching it for clues when they stumble upon a bunker under the barn. Going into the bunker, they find it full of food, supplies, photography equipment, and binders full of photos of girls, including Kate's and Rachel's, and an empty Victoria binder. Chloe notices that the last photo of Rachel was taken in the junkyard, so they rush there. Once at the junkyard, they begin digging in the spot from the photo and find Rachel's body. Their next course of action is to try and confront Nathan, and they assume he will be at the Vortex Club party, so that's where they head. Before entering, Max notices that there are two moons in the sky, but Chloe is only focused on Nathan. Then they bump into a drunk Warren who takes a photo with Max. Once in, Max makes her way around and trying to find Nathan, and ends up in the Vortex member section where even Victoria doesn't know where he is. Before leaving, Jefferson makes an announcement that Victoria won the contest. Once in the parking lot, they plan to go to the dorms to try and find him, but then they get a message from Nathan saying there won't be any evidence left, so they rush to the junkyard to stop him. Sneaking through the junkyard, they make their way to Rachel's body and see that it is still there. While distracted, Max is drugged by someone and tries to warn Chloe, who turns around and gets shot. Max looks up and sees Mr. Jefferson. And that is the ends episode 4. Episode 4 is the payoff to most of the building that has been done in the previous episodes. We learned what happened to Kate and Rachel, who did it, and where it all happened. It does a great job of setting up Nathan to be the one behind everything, and it is such a great twist to see Jefferson there. Now, it fully sets up episode 5 to explain everything else behind the mysteries and see how the game will end. Episode 5, Polarized, begins with Max waking up in the darkroom, duct taped to a chair, not remembering what happened and how she got there. On her right is a trolley with syringes and photos of her. She is able to free her right leg and pulls the trolley over to her so she can use her powers to go back and see what happened. The photos she goes through, she ends up being too drugged to properly move or say anything and has to take being photographed by Jefferson. He gets tired of Max trying to move and gets ready to drug her again. In an attempt to defend herself, she is able to kick away the trolley, knocking over a vial onto other photos. Jefferson proceeds to drug her, and Max wakes up back in the same spot. She sees another photo where she seems more awake and heads into it. In this one, she is able to talk to Jefferson and asks why he is doing this.
Mr. Jefferson, why are you doing this?
Oh, Max. I'm so glad you asked that question. Simply put, I'm obsessed with the idea of capturing that moment innocence evolves into corruption. That shift from black to white to gray and beyond. Most models are cynical. They lose that naivete. However, some Blackwell students carry their hope and optimism with them like an aura. And those lucky few become my models. My subjects.
Yes, you're a psychopath. And this is your last session.
Au contraire, Max. I'm so sane that nobody knows what's happening to you right now. And don't get me started on your late partner. I had enough of those faux punk sluts in my Seattle days.
You killed Chloe. You murdered my best friend.
She had a loaded weapon. This was clearly self-defense, but that's what happens when you play with guns. Or try to fuck with me. It's better when they don't know. Like pure, sweet Kate.
Kate believed, and she survived. You failed to break her. She's stronger than ever, and she'll outlive you.
She'll certainly outlive you. Who knows? Maybe I'll pay Kate a visit soon and test her faith again.
You will not get away with this. I want you to know that.
Too bad you already made a convincing argument against Nathan in the principal's office. Thank you so much for setting him up for me. I do know that the Prescotts are going to have a major scandal when the town finds out what their elite son has been doing for homework.
You used Nathan.
I prefer the term manipulated. Like with an image. Nathan's was easy to twist around. I became a sort of father figure for Nathan. It happens often in teacher-student relationships. It was kind of touching for a while.
Did you tell him everything about your plans at Blackwell?
Don't be stupid, Max. I told him what he needed to hear. In return, I had access to the Prescott fortune. Who do you think paid for this glorious darkroom and equipment? How else could I get all these hip new drugs for my subjects?
Rachel Amber was your victim, not your subject.
Oh. Rachel Amber. That's the real tragedy. Nathan thought he could be an artist like me. Instead, the dumbass gave her an overdose.
Why Rachel?
I don't have time to tell you everything. But she was special. A human chameleon, so many visual possibilities. We had a real connection.
Did she let you take pictures of her?
Rachel was in love with me. That's not my ego. Just look at our sessions. Not that I'll let you. Nobody loved having their picture taken more. Anyway, Rachel is dead. But no tears. Los Angeles would have killed her anyway, so look at this as a favor.
You're evil.
Oh, I see. You're good because you stopped your friend from beating Nathan up.
I cared more about Nathan than you did.
No, you didn't. It's just too bad that he fell in lust with Rachel. He actually thought he could mimic what I do with the camera and subject, like father, but not like son.
Where is Nathan now?
Dead and buried. After what he did to Rachel, I knew I couldn't keep him as a protege for much longer. Now the police will never find his body. Do you finally get it now, Max? I can't compromise my vision with amateurs.
You are an amateur. Look at the trail of death you left behind. You can't blame all this on Nathan. I don't care what you do to me. You're gonna die, motherfucker. For Chloe and Rachel and everybody else.
I do love your spirit, Max, but you brought yourself here. By your own choice. Anyway, I like my models to be seen and not heard. So I have to make sure there's nothing left behind of you.
While Jefferson goes to print the photos, Max notices that her diary is there and that she could use it to travel back to stop this. She calls over Jefferson, telling him about it, who throws it at her feet, criticizing one of her shots. That shot being the selfie she took back at the start of the game in his class. She goes back realizing that this is her chance to change everything and is now in the past. When she comes to, she texts David everything she knows about Jefferson and the darkroom. She then heads over to Jefferson and hands in her photo. The timeline readjusts. Jefferson and Nathan get arrested. Max wins the contest and comes to on an airplane making its way to San Francisco for the art show. When she wakes up again, she is at the art show, with time being where it should be. She looks around at all the other photos and makes her way to hers. When she gets to her photo, she gets another vision of the tornado and realizes that it is still going to happen. She calls Chloe, who tells her that the storm from her vision is happening and ends up losing connection. She wants to be there for Chloe and the town, and the only way she can see to do that is to go back through her photo and destroy it so she never goes to San Francisco. When she goes through, her head hurts, her nose is bleeding, and the area around her seems to be heavily warped due to all the time jumping. She destroys her photo and ends up in the darkroom where Jefferson has burned her journal. Jefferson then tries to kill Max with an overdose, but is interrupted when he hears someone entering the darkroom. It turns out to be David, but Jefferson gets the upper hand on him. Max rewinds and tries to stall Jefferson by asking for one last photo. He puts the camera down when he goes to get the drugs. The same events play out, but Max warns David before Jefferson can get him. Max is able to continue to assist David by warning him and telling him what to do, and is finally able to distract Jefferson long enough for David to knock him out. Once Max is free, she needs to find another way to stop this, and remembers that Warren has a photo from the night before. She takes Jefferson's keys, but before she leaves, she talks to David. In my playthrough, I told him that Jefferson killed Chloe. This upsets David, and he shoots Jefferson, killing him. Max then heads over to the two whales and sees all the death and destruction that the storm has caused. Once she makes her way into the diner, she uses the photo Warren had to go back and warn Chloe about what is going to happen. She wakes up on the beach with Chloe as the tornado is approaching. She learns what happened and that they are currently headed towards the lighthouse. But as they begin to move, Max's head begins to hurt and she wakes back up in class. While she watches everything happen again, birds start crashing into the window, and then the bell rings, everyone disappears, and some things are warped. When she tries to leave the class, Jefferson appears behind her, asking about her entry and then asking if she would like to stay in his darkroom. After talking to him, she tries to go through the door, but ends up in the dorms where she sees Kate jump through her door and fall. She then goes through the dorms several more times, each time themed after a different person, going from Rachel to Victoria and then herself. When she goes through her door, she ends up in the school, but everything is happening in reverse as she makes her way to the bathroom. Going through the bathroom door, she ends up in an abstract area where she has to work her way through a maze and avoid getting spotted by people who have posed a threat to her throughout the game. When she gets to the end, she sits down on the couch and ends up in a snow globe and watches the last day William was alive. Then she gets transported back into the darkroom, where different characters throughout the game trash talk with Chloe about her. Chloe takes some photo of Max, and then she ends up in the bathroom of the Two Wells diner. When she goes into the main area, she sees all the characters throughout the game frozen and can hear them talking to her. She eventually finds an unfrozen version of herself, and they talk. They claim to be a Max who was left behind, but is most likely Max's subconscious. Eventually they get to the topic of Chloe, and Max transitions into another abstract area, this one being filled with all the Max and Chloe moments throughout the game. She works her way through and gets all the way back to where they left off with Chloe on the beach, and she wakes up back in reality next to the lighthouse.
Max! Max, can you hear me? Please say something.
Chloe? I must have passed out.
Thank God. Don't you ever do that again, okay? I swear. But that nightmare was so real. It was so horrible. This is my storm. I caused this. I caused all of this. I changed fate and destiny so much that I actually did alter the course of everything. And all I really created was just death and destruction. Fuck all that, okay? You were given a power. You didn't ask for it. And you saved me, which had to happen. All of this did. Except for what happened to Rachel. But without your power, we wouldn't have found her. Okay, so you're not the goddamn Time Master, but you're Maxine Caulfield. And you're amazing. Max. This is the only way. I feel like I took the shot 1,000 years ago. You could use that photo to change everything right back to when you took that picture. All that would take is for me to... Fuck that. No. No way. You are my #1 priority now. You are all that matters to me. I know. You prove that over and over again. Even though I don't deserve it. I'm so selfish. Not like my mom. Look what she had to give up and live through. And she did. She deserves so much more than to be killed by a storm in a fucking diner. Even my stepfather deserves her alive. There's so many more people in Arcadia Bay who should live. Way more than me. Don't say that. I won't trade you. You're not trading me. Maybe you've just been delaying my real destiny. Look at how many times I've almost died or actually died around you. Look at what's happened in Arcadia Bay ever since you first saved me. I know I've been selfish, but for once, I think I should accept my fate. Our fate, Chloe. Max, you finally came back to me this week, and you did nothing but show me your love and friendship. You made me smile and laugh like I haven't done in years. Wherever I end up after this, in whatever reality, all those moments between us were real, and they'll always be ours. No matter what you choose, I know you'll make the right decision. Chloe, I can't make this choice. No, Max. You're the only one who can.
The game then gives us a choice between sacrificing Chloe to save Arcadia Bay or sacrificing Arcadia Bay to save Chloe. I chose to sacrifice Chloe. I'll get into why later. Max goes back to when she took the photo and lets the events unfold without intervening, knowing what is going to happen. The timeline adjusts and the game shows us what happens. Nathan gets arrested and interrogated, telling about what he and Jefferson had been up to, leading to Jefferson getting arrested. Max wakes back up at the lighthouse, seeing that no storm is coming to Arcadia Bay, and heads to Chloe's funeral. Max, Joyce, David, a couple of Blackwell students, along with Frank in the distance, attend. We watch as that same blue butterfly lands on her casket, and the camera pans up to Max, who gives a faint smile, and the game ends. In my opinion, Episode 5 is the best episode in the game. Everything that the game has set up falls into place here. All the mysteries, hints, and choices all combine into one amazing experience. It starts out picking up from the cliffhanger that Episode 4 left us on. Immediately starts answering our mysteries, pays off so much from the past episodes, and sets so much up within its own episode. It gives us fantastic character moments, probably the best trippy sequence I've ever played, and ends with a choice that truly encapsulates the butterfly effect. Episode 5 was the perfect episode and ending to this game. The story of Life is Strange is a beautiful one. It is a mystery, time travel adventure that at its core perfectly represents the butterfly effect. Max went to that bathroom. The butterfly came in, she took a photo, and everything changed. That butterfly led to saving Chloe, rekindling their friendship, and solving several mysteries, but also led to the storm that could wipe out a town. Everything fits so perfectly. The whole game loops right back to this one specific moment, and that ending choice, having to choose between giving up everything you have worked so hard for, and Chloe, the person you have saved over and over and over, all to save Arcadia Bay, or to keep everything you have done and save Chloe, but at the cost of a whole town. Once again, it is a beautiful representation of the butterfly effect, and the story this game has created will forever have a place in my heart. Moving on to characters, we'll be starting with the lead herself, Maxine Caulfield. Max was raised in Arcadia Bay for the first 13 years of life, where she became best friends with another girl around her age, Chloe Price. Unfortunately, Max's family moved to Seattle right after Chloe lost her father. Max spent 5 years there before coming back after she got accepted into Blackwell Academy, where she plans to learn and grow as a photographer. Max is a character who I hold very close to my heart. At her core, she is a kind and caring person, even with some of the more mean choices you can make throughout the game. She genuinely cares for the people around her, and even if they aren't the nicest towards her, she still tries to be a good person towards them. She is, for lack of a better word, pure, which after this game I don't like to say. She doesn't do anything wrong without absolute necessity. Stealing and breaking in were all things she needed to do for a greater cause. Max was a great character to give these powers to. She has a clear, strong moral compass and wouldn't use her powers to commit evil acts or do something that would solely benefit her. She has regrets about the choices she made and the actions she has committed. She has to go through so much throughout the game, and it is incredible she doesn't break at any point. She has to watch her best friend get shot several times, save her from an oncoming train, watch another friend attempt to kill herself, and travels to an alternate reality where Chloe is now paralyzed and is asked to kill her. Then she has to go back and let William die. She's also drugged, kidnapped, and tied up by someone she looked up to, and in my playthrough watched him get shot by David. She had to see all the death and destruction caused by a storm, and finally she had to choose between Chloe and Arcadia Bay. Overall, Max is a phenomenal character and protagonist. She has to give up so much and go through so much, and still stay strong and kind. Moving on to our second leading lady, Chloe Price. I already talked about Chloe in my Before the Storm video, but there are some differences between the two. Of course, in this game you don't control her, so there's only a little say to what Chloe could or should do. Overall, she is very similar, but with a bit more experience under her belt. She's still very outgoing, dislikes David, and wants to live her life her own way, and now she doesn't have the pressure of school, so she can really do whatever she wants. Her main goal in this game is to find Rachel Amber, and she's willing to do almost anything to accomplish her goal. This makes Chloe one of the main ways to progress the story, as she is the one who is willing to break in, steal, knows Frank, and has a car to get around town. While Chloe is essential to the plot and driving it forward, she does have times where she can cause problems, get in the way, or can just be frustrating in general. Knowing Frank is useful to the plot, but owing him money is not. Stealing a gun, getting stuck in train tracks, breaking into a pool, wanting Max to ignore Kate, wanting to misuse Max's powers, blaming all her problems on everyone else, all things that make Chloe a little hard to deal with at times. Outside of her being essential to the plot, she makes up for her flaws by having some really strong moments with Max. Watching their friendship grow is nice. Seeing all the little moments they joke and get along is amazing. Even though breaking in the pool wasn't a great idea, it was still a strong bonding moment for the two. Seeing Chloe's heartbreak over Rachel, having to relive the day William died, and seeing what would happen to Chloe if he didn't, are all tragic and let us connect to her on a more emotional level. And of course, we have the end choice. Having to choose between her and the town. Throughout the game, we can see her be a bit selfish, but here we see her being truly selfless. Chloe understands that the storm is there because she is alive when she shouldn't be. She knows and accepts that giving her life for the town is the right thing to do. Her figuring this out at the end just adds a final bit of pain for when I chose to sacrifice her. I chose to sacrifice Chloe for several reasons. One, of course, is that she wants to and has accepted her fate. Another is that even though we spent the entire game trying to save her, her one life doesn't outweigh all the ones who will die from the storm, the ones who will lose their home, work, family, friends, and so much more. As much as I love Chloe, I can't accept that her life is worth all the destruction, and it just continues to add to the pain of that final choice and what makes this game so good. Now moving on to our twist villain, Mark Jefferson. Jefferson is a phenomenal antagonist who I didn't see coming at all during my first playthrough. When he showed up, it shocked me, and I started to put it all together. And then his monologues in the 5th episode fully put everything into place. The game does a great job of showing us it was hinting at this the entire time by setting us back to the very beginning of the game when he is literally talking about how he would capture the students in the most vulnerable moment in a dark corner. Jefferson was set up to be a great role model, and the twist of him being behind all the disgusting events is an amazing one. The entire Darkroom segment is one of my favorites in the game because the quality, the reveals, and what it does for the story is incredible, but I also hate it because what is actually happening is so disgusting. All this makes Jefferson one of the most evil and twisted characters I have ever seen, and is just another reason why I love this game. Now to our twist hero, David Madsen. David is set up to be the typical abusive, mean stepdad figure, but at the end, he turns out to be a bit of a hero. Throughout the game, we know he's trying to figure something out, but his methods seem a little shady. Luckily, all his work ends up being useful and leads to the discovery of the Darkroom. The final Darkroom segment shows David as his best self. He goes toe-to-toe with Jefferson and saves Max. He seems genuinely worried about Max and wants to make sure she is alright. We also see how much he truly cares about Chloe when he learns what happened to her. He says that he never got her to tell her that he something. Most likely that he loved her. As rude as he was to her, and as much as they fought, he did clearly care about Chloe. and about Joyce, and was trying to do his best to be a part of their family and protect them. I want to talk a little bit about Rachel before we move on to some more of the side characters. In my Before the Storm video, I talked about how she was set up well for her role in Life is Strange, but as we see, she isn't truly in it. I mention this because she is set up as a well-known and outgoing person in this game, which they do show in Before the Storm. She's also set up as being not fully truthful to Chloe and being more extreme than Chloe initially thought. This is what I couldn't truly talk about in my Before the Storm video, as I didn't want to focus too much on this game and, for like spoiler reasons. What I did talk about is how I found she can be really moody and constantly either forces, manipulates, or guilt trips Chloe into doing things. When playing Before the Storm, I had forgotten how much Rachel hid from Chloe in Life is Strange. So when replaying it, I thought back to the fact that Rachel was set up to always be like this, making me appreciate Before the Storm a little bit more. Now I want to move away from talking about Before the Storm, as I primarily want to focus on each game by itself, but it is something I already connected the games with, so I want to elaborate a bit more, and I plan on making a video connecting and comparing all the games later anyway. Now moving on to characters that I want to talk about, but only have a little to say. Warren. He's a good guy, has a good heart, and does a lot for Max in the story, but I didn't choose to romance him as I didn't think it's good for Max to be in a relationship after all she went through. Kate is a tragic character who didn't deserve what she got, but still stayed a good person. Nathan is set up wonderfully to make us think he is the main villain, and it's unfortunate to learn why he is the way he is and what happened to him. And then finally, Joyce, who once again is a great mother, wife, and character. Overall, Life is Strange has a wide cast of phenomenal characters, each with their own personalities and interactions. This game does a great job of making them all feel alive, realistic, and unique. This game has some of my favorite and most memorable characters, and is once again a reason why I love this game. Now I want to move on to all the extra stuff that I want to talk about that impacts the game, but isn't as major. Graphics. The graphics of this game aren't the best, but that is also due to it having a very clear cartoon, animated, painted, and drawn look, which I love and gives the game a great visual personality. This is the remastered version, but I didn't notice too much graphical improvement. Most of the characters and item models looked pretty similar to what I remember. There did seem to be some lighting and reflection improvement on some surfaces. The weird thing is that the facial animations seemed a bit lacking. A lot of the time the characters held the same facial expressions, and there were only minor changes during big moments of emotion. While I try not to look at or watch Life is Strange content while making these to stay unbiased and true to my opinion, I did see a lot of things mentioning a decline in facial expressions for the remastered collection, which is not great considering, it's a remaster. They also made the eyes of the characters more glossy or shiny, which looks a little out of place with how everything else looks, and it takes a little while to get used to, and it can be almost distracting at some points. Overall, I love how the game looks, being painted and drawn and cartoony, but for a remaster, it didn't do a great job. The music in this game is so perfect that I don't even know where to start. There are two different kinds of music this game has. One being songs with lyrics, and the other just being pure music made for the game. I don't know what genre I would classify the songs as. Whatever it is, it has a unique way of sounding and fits perfectly into this game. I can't imagine this game with songs that sound like anything else. I don't know what it is about them that fits so well or makes me like them, but whatever it is, I'm glad it's there. In fact, I added 3 songs to my playlist. To All of You, Obstacles, and Mount Washington. These are all songs that I would never have heard or enjoyed without this game. Even if I had heard them, I highly doubt they would have had the same weight. Now going back to music made for the game, its OST, it's somehow even better and even more impactful. I don't know how to describe it, but I have a story that I think does it justice. I played Life is Strange on my PS4 during COVID, and a couple of months later the PS5 came out. On the PS5, when you hover over a game, it has a background photo and sometimes music plays along with it. Life is Strange just so happened to be on my home page, and when I hovered over it and the music played, I froze. It had been nearly 6 months since I played it, and that music brought back so many emotions and memories, and I almost ended up getting a little overwhelmed, and then I scrolled away. This happened nearly every time I got on those first couple of days. Eventually, Life is Strange left my home screen as other games started filling it up. But that memory and those feelings I got were just from the music. While I've been writing the music segment for the script, I was listening to that homepage music. And even after, 4 playthroughs, 2 platinums, and 4 years of having Life is Strange, the music still hits a very deep spot within me. Now moving on to pros and cons. I want us to start with cons just to get them out of the way. First things first, we have obviously not the best animation or graphics. That is in part, due to its style being clearly cartoony and painted look, but there is a clear difference between models. Some things look really clean, really crisp, and fine. Other things look really polygony, really unrendered, really not great. But it's fine. Also, it does look worse in the recordings, especially on the PS5. It probably looks a bit better on like an actual PC, and not me recording on my PS5 and then having to upload it and download it and all that crap, right? But yeah, so it does look slightly better than it looks like in the recordings, but it's still not a significant improvement. There's also the light reflecting really strong in the eyes. Only happened a couple of times, but it's still enough to be kind of distracting and off-putting. I have characters spazzing out. Mainly that was just Max every so often, but still, like, why is her character just phasing out of like existence or like lagging or like what is the point? I don't get it, we have Max's shirt changing between scenes. What I mean by this is you go to the place and then you like exit the location, a loading screen, boom, and then her shirt's different, right? That shouldn't happen. Like, unless she's changing her shirt between the time she left a door and 2 seconds after she opened a door, I don't get it. It's probably just, the character models being just grabbed in place and they just grabbed the wrong one. But still, like, is it really that hard to just see? Oh yeah, this is a pink shirt, this is a white shirt, she's wearing the white shirt today, boom. Anyway. And then, there's a couple of unnecessary loading screens. Mainly, so it'll be like, okay, you have a cutscene, loading screen, cutscene, loading screen, and then boom, cutscene leading straight into gameplay. It's like, why not just have that middle segment just either be the one before it or the one after? You don't need a cutscene loading screen with a cutscene, then a loading screen, and then back. It's like, no, just put it on one or the other. But yeah, that's pretty much all the cons I have. Minor things, nothing like major with this game. Pros, and as far as I'm aware, pretty innovative, or at least unique gameplay with the whole time traveling choice options. Stuff like, the story is great, the characters are great, the music is great. I love having collectible modes in games like this. Makes it to where you don't have to replay an entire game. Even if it's short like this, it's still nice to be able to go through, just grab stuff real quick, boom, you're done, just for trophies. Also, it allows you to replay specific moments in the game that if you really want to, which is nice. So once again, you don't have to go back through the entire game to just redo something. Once again, the cinematography is good. It has unique shots. It's not just behind the character, over the shoulder. It moves around. It does some good stuff. The butterfly metaphor and effect thing. Oh, chef's kiss. They did that wonderfully. It's set up from, the get-go. Phenomenal. I don't actually know if the remastered version has the butterfly loading screen. That might have only been like at the very, very beginning. But I at least know the original game did, which is cool. Another thing, trippy sequence. I've said this before. I love trippy sequences in games. I think every game should have them. This probably is one of, if not the best trippy sequences I've ever experienced, because what it does for the story and character with Max, and like showing her all her past, especially with Chloe right before the decision, is just phenomenal. And also the transitions in there were super smooth. There was only like one or two loading screens between everything. Whereas normally it's like, yeah, you leave a room, loading screen. No, this was just boom, 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 boom. That felt just so fluid, which is nice, and I love that. And then finally, Ashley Birch. She's the voice actress for Chloe. She's a phenomenal voice actress. I absolutely love her. She did Aloy in the Horizon games as well, which I recently played. I look up to her as a voice actor. I know as some dude who wants to be a voice actor or act just in general. She is like one of my idols, and I would love to somehow get to her level or work with her or just meet her or something. Anyway, that's enough of that. Yeah, she's great. Anyway, yeah, but this game has, in my opinion, a lot more pros than cons, and just look at the story, look at the characters, look at the gameplay, look at the music. It all just comes together so well. And that's pretty much all the extra stuff I wanted to cover with this game. This section is dedicated to the different experiences I had with this game. I've now replayed this game 4 separate times, but the two that really matter are my first and this past playthrough. While they are two distinct experiences, they both started with one shared thing, which is seeing what this game had to offer. I was introduced to Life is Strange by a friend who recommended I get it back during quarantine. I was fairly hesitant at first, but episode 1 was free to play, so I ended up giving it a shot. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't get the rest of the game. Safe to say I ended up loving it and getting the rest of the game. The most notable things about my first playthrough were that 1, my game sense wasn't super developed, so I didn't look around and interact with everything, and I mainly just did the story. 2, I wasn't able to save Kate. 3, I initially thought someone else knew about the storm because of the bunker. 4, Victoria ended up in the darkroom. And 5, I chose to sacrifice Chloe. My first playthrough blew me away, as it was one of the only games like this I had played, and of course it was my first time experiencing everything. Kate's death really surprised me, as I thought I had done everything right. I erased the messages and tried to comfort her, but I just didn't pay quite enough attention to her room to get everything I needed to convince her. The ending choice was something that I didn't see coming, as most of the game up to episode 5 was primarily focused on the darkroom mysteries. It was heartbreaking when we finally learned that all this had to do with Chloe being alive. When I was presented with the choice, I was stunned, but I found it easy to sacrifice Chloe. This is due to what I mentioned earlier. As much as I valued Chloe, her life couldn't be worth more than an entire town. My first playthrough wasn't perfect, but it was the one that had the most genuine and strongest reactions, choices, emotions, and impact. Before moving on to my most recent playthrough, I want to talk about a specific change that happened after playing for the first time. The issue with playing this game more than once is that if you are planning on sacrificing Chloe, whatever you do in the game doesn't truly matter. You know that you will have to forfeit all of your choices and connections. This is one problem I had while replaying. I knew that if I took the money or the gun or let someone die, it wouldn't matter because when you go back, none of that will happen. But I needed to remember that that's not necessarily the case. I also just want to do the right thing for the sake of it being good. I still want to feel like I'm making an impact, even if it might not matter. And that is what I tried to focus on playing the game how I wanted and to its full potential. I went into this past playthrough to dive into all this game had to offer. If I was going to analyze and review it, I needed to fully play it. Using what I had learned from my other 3 experiences I had with this game, wanting to fully play it, and trying to analyze all I could, I came out with the best experience I have had. Almost all of my choices were still genuine. I had forgotten a lot of the little moments in the game and some of the story, so I was still ending up with some fresh moments. I did everything I could to benefit the world around me and tried to end with the best possible choices, even if it didn't matter. I got to see all the hints the game dropped throughout and see how clever the game was with hiding them. I still experienced an amazing story with simple but unique gameplay and phenomenal characters. This will probably be my last playthrough of Life is Strange, at least for a while, and I'm fine with that. In conclusion, Life is Strange is an incredible game. I know I played the remastered version, but I want to focus on the actual game here. Once again, as simple as the gameplay is, it added a nice and unique twist that added a lot and tied heavily into the story. The story itself is amazing. It captured me right away and pulled me through the best mystery adventure I've ever experienced. It had so many strong moments and twists that left me heartbroken. The characters all feel alive and realistic, with Max, Chloe, and the relationships they had all having a large impact on those around them. The art style is great, and the music is phenomenal. Life is Strange will forever have a spot in my heart, and is one of the best games I have and most likely will ever play. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear what you thought about Life is Strange, what you liked, disliked, or anything else. I'll start working on my playthrough and then analysis of Life is Strange 2 shortly, so if you enjoyed this video, I'd recommend checking that out. And I can tell you now that I will have a lot to say about 2. And once again, thank you for watching.